YouTube? This is me, J-Man Time. I usually don't talk all that much, and for good reason. My voice doesn't really sound all that pleasant to listen to. I don't know. It just sounds easier to make videos with no audio on it. But for this video, I'm going to be talking about some what if Battlefield 1 prequel slash sequel ideas. And this is mostly in regards to what if campaigns, or slash DLC content they could make for Battlefield 1. Well, me personally, I would just like them to make another game entirely, just not just DLC. So they could just make, like, I don't know, a prequel game or a sequel game. But this all depends on if Battlefield 1 really does well when it releases. So without further ado, let me get into it. Okay, the first Battlefield 1 prequel idea would be the Italo-Turkish War, or also known as the Turco-Italian War of 1911 through 1912. For all of you diehard World War One trench warfare type players, this would actually be trench warfare since you know there weren't very many automatics in the first in the Italo-Turkish War, outside of the Paramo light machine gun and the Mauser self-loading C96 carbine. The Italo-Turkish War was a conflict between the Kingdom of Italy and the Ottoman Empire over who would control Libya. Uh, this conflict was the first conflict to use aircraft, the first conflict to use aerial bombing. The Italian forces used zeppelins and improvised bomber aircraft to bomb Turkish slash Ottoman troops in Libya. The Italians also used armored cars for the first time. So this will be the first conflict, the first the first 20th century conflict to use armored fighting vehicles. So for a Battlefield 1 game, for a Battlefield 1 prequel game, this would be a good prequel in the build up to World War One. So, yeah, if anyone from Dice is listening, if you make any Battlefield One DLC slash I don't know, prequel game ideas, uh, the Italo-Turkish War of 1911 should be included in said game. Um, The next Battlefield 1 prequel slash DLC game or downloadable content idea would be a Battlefield campaign, a pre-Battlefield 1 campaign set during the Balkan Wars, also known as the Balkan Tragedy. These were the Balkan Wars were two conflicts. The first Balkan War was the Ottoman Empire versus the Balkan states of Montenegro, Greece, Serbia, and Bulgaria. And the second Balkan War was pretty much Montenegro, Greece, Serbia, and Romania, along with the Ottoman Empire, pretty much turned on Bulgaria, even though the Ottoman Empire was the main enemy of the First Balkan War. These conflicts took place between 1912 and 1913, and pretty much both Balkan Wars influenced Garvello Principi, I can't remember how his name is pronounced. If you know who that guy is, he's pretty much the one who assassinated Archduke Ferdinand, which would later, you know, lead to World War One. So if they're going to do a Battlefield 1 prequel DLC or a Battlefield 1 prequel game, then they will have to include the Balkan Wars. So, yeah, the Balkan Wars, that has to be in it. Uh, Most of the weapons in the Balkan Wars were mostly bolt action rifles, double action revolvers, and self loading pistols. There are also some heavy machine guns. The only real fully automatic light weapon or handheld weapon used in this conflict would be the Madison light machine gun, and that's pretty much it. Outside of semi-automatic pistols, a Balkan War campaign or a Balkan War DLC slash prequel game would be a true trench warfare, experience for those Battlefield 1 fans who feel like DICE added too many automatic weapons, making Battlefield 1 feel more like a World War II game than a World War I game. So, yeah, the Balkan Wars would have to be included. Okay, um, the next topic would be ideas for post World War One Battlefield One games. Ideas for a possible sequel to the Battlefield One game. So it would be called Battlefield Two, I guess. And this one would be a post World War One game in which you will be playing in the aftermath of the First World War. So the first conflict after World War One, or the first major conflict that actually started during World War One, but was still going on afterwards, was the Russian Civil War. If DICE does a sequel to Battlefield 1 or a sequel DLC or spin-off game, they would have to do a Russian Civil War, as that was the first major conflict after the end of the First World War. Now, the Russian Civil War is a really, really interesting conflict. It was fought by two main factions: the White Russian movement or the Tsar movement versus the Soviet slash Bolshevik movement, as the Germans called them. Um, the It's interesting because this is also technically the beginning of the Cold War, as during the Russian Civil War, the U.S., Britain, France, Czechoslovakia, and a few other smaller nations decided to intervene against the Soviet Union. The Americans, we intervene. If you're from the United States, we intervene in the form of the Polar Bear Expedition. That's where we sent American troops and mercenaries to Russia to fight the early form of the Soviet Red Army. That didn't work out so well. So yeah, the Russian Civil War, they had a lot of World War One tech, a lot of homemade tanks and armored cars made by both the Tsar movement and the Soviet Red Armies. Um, the Russian Civil War also spread to other areas outside of Russia. You had other conflicts within the Russian Civil War. You had the Latvian War of Independence, the Lithuanian War of Independence, the Polish War of Independence, and the Polish Soviet War. You also had the Finnish War of Independence and the Estonian War of Independence. So, if they make a post Battlefield 1 game, they would have to include those campaigns. The campaigns in Finland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland would have to be included in a post World War One Battlefield sequel, Battlefield 1 sequel. So yeah, let me see what else. Okay, another conflict that happened right after World War One that DICE could include as, I guess, additional DLC in a post Battlefield One sequel game slash DLC. They should also include the Turkish War of Independence. And the Turkish War of Independence was pretty much what happened after the Ottoman Empire lost control of the Middle East. They pretty much lost all their territory outside of what we now call Turkey. So what happened was there was a Ottoman general named who later became president named Ataturk, and Ataturk launched what he called the Young Turks Revolution. And what happened was they pretty much took all of the Ottoman era weapons and equipment, and they launched a gigantic counteroffensive against the Allied powers that were occupying Turkey at the time. So that would include Greece, France, the United Kingdom, Italy, and the and part of Armenia. So yeah, this conflict, this post World War One conflict, was pretty much the biggest conflict, biggest post World War One conflict happening in the Middle East. You know, in the Muslim portion of the world at that time. So I think DICE should include that campaign, you know, or as a DLC, or maybe that could be part of the end of a post World War One Battlefield One sequel game. So yeah, all of these conflicts after World War One, they pretty much used all of the same weaponry from World War One. You had a few new weapons here and there. You know, by the time the Turkish War of Independence and the time of the Soviet uprising slash Russian Civil War, you also had a lot of weapons, you know, appearing, a lot of automatic weapons appearing after World War One. Everyone knows about the German MP-18 and the Russian Fedorov Automat, but you also had the Thompson submachine gun, you know, and that was used during the Irish Civil War, which was another post World War One conflict in which the Irish were basically fighting each other. So, and they were also fighting the British too. It wasn't just one conflict; it was two conflicts in one. So that would be another, like, I guess, interesting side campaign for Battlefield. A what if Battlefield One prequel, not prequel but sequel idea. You know, if you have any other ideas for Battlefield, put them in the comments section. Any ideas for what if Battlefield games? Um, if you have any ideas for any other video games, please put them in the comments section. I guess that's it. This was J-Man Time signing off. So yeah.